So we have over 80 slides, which a lot of people freak out about. I always like to start with ways to let you down. Chris did mention that this broke an attendance record. I always try to be humble, but I have broken 2 other attendance records before. They were for non-attendance in college, and I made D's in both of the classes. But it was philosophy of science and financial management. 2 useless things, right? That was a joke. Going to build it up here. So I'm going to talk to you today about ways you can be effective with content marketing. Most of us probably have millions of dollars in budget. Raise your hand if you have millions of dollars to spend on your marketing. This guy. We heard all the sponsors paying you all this money. All right. Yes, so we're going to jump in. All right. I am Chris Moody. These are my kids. This is the awe slide. Thank you. That works every time. That's a little trick. If you've ever heard me present, I use this in every deck, even at work. So everyone has seen my kids multiple times. Once they age, we'll have to get new photos. I am obsessed with field notes, and I have That's What She Said on my wedding band. These are also true stories. For the folks who watch The Office, that's funny. For everyone else, you're missing out. I always like to see if I'm going to break PowerPoint. There are about 40 GIFs in this slide. And if you text with me, which my brother's here, he can attest to this, I probably haven't written a word in about 3 years. Even my wife would tell you, like, we never talk. I just send GIFs. And I think it's a skill that is very useful as someone who is barely a millennial. So there's my millennial tie. And Phil Buckley, that should have been the loud clap. You used it on the sponsor, I heard you. These are some of the companies I've been fortunate to work for. Only one of these companies fired me, which we're not going to talk about today. But I have worked at Bandwidth when we launched Phone Booth. I was at Red Hat when they crossed the $1 billion mark. I worked for a company called Compendium, and we were acquired by Oracle Marketing Cloud. Now I work at GE Digital. Now, this is kind of the LinkedIn story, which I call LinkedIn Match.com for business, because we only put the positive there. So it will say like very committed instead of like jealous guy. So if you read LinkedIn, it sounds like everything was perfect, but there's horror stories in all the transitions, which we can share when we're not live streaming. A little bit about me, since we're going to spend about an hour together. I have been sued over a blog post, which we'll talk about a little bit. I've been deposed for 9 hours. I've been fired once, hired more than once. I have escaped a kidnapping attempt. These are all true stories. I'm not making any of these up. I've been shot at and chased by a man with a spear. I lettered in women's basketball at North Carolina State University. I was a leukemia survivor, still am, surprisingly, since '86. That has not changed. Thank you. Never have gotten applause for that, ever. I've done this deck about 50 times, so I think everyone else is either really mean or you guys are really nice. We'll figure that out later. I also won a national poetry contest in 5th grade with a poem that I forgot to write. I was in the back of the classroom, and the teacher was walking around collecting them, and I just made something up about a dove, and it won this peace poetry contest. So I peaked in 5th grade. Ever since 5th grade, it's been gradually downhill. And my wife is not here, so I can say that. If you Google sued over a blog post, you will see that I am number 1 out of 60.5 million results. And that's with very limited SEO knowledge. That's a fun story you can read about. I do suggest if you want to rank well for being sued over a blog post, you should definitely go and get sued over a blog post. So that's one useful thing you should write down tonight. Marketing. I kind of lured you in with this topic. It's a little bit of a BuzzFeed bait and switch, you know. Insanely effective content marketing, no budget, yeah. And we're really going to talk about some of the problems with marketing, because if I said, here's 5 things that are wrong with marketing, we'd have 50 people instead of 300 people. The first thing, does anyone watch Silicon Valley? Okay, by far less than half. That's the first problem with marketing. You don't watch the funny shows. So you should write that down. Now, this is Gavin Belson. This is a fake quote, so please don't write this down as an inspirational quote or put it on your desk. But he says, failure is growth, failure is learning, but sometimes failure is just failure. Now, the sad fact is that we embrace failure, and that is a good thing. At GE, we have a concept called FastWorks. It's kind of the same as lean marketing, lean methodology. Fail fast, learn from your failures, and go forward. But sometimes Failure is failure, and that's the true part. I mean, there are times where what we're doing is wrong or what we're doing is bad. And as an industry, we have to embrace that. First stat here, 82% of enterprise marketers have no centralized view of the customer. This is from Forrester. What this means is that if you have multiple marketing tools, if you have a brick and mortar store, if you sell anything online, all of those channels, customers are different. So you cannot unify the same person who buys in your store, who buys online from you, who clicks on an email. So you may be sending a marketing campaign to someone who just bought that exact product in the store. So that's 82%. 65% of CMOs cannot measure ROI for digital marketing. That's pausing for dramatic effect, another presentation technique. This is a huge problem. What year is it? 2017. 65% of chief marketing officers cannot measure the effectiveness of their digital marketing. So if we can't tie our marketing to what it's actually driving, we're just spending money. We're a cost center. And if marketing is a cost center, your job is probably not extremely safe. So if we jump into how to be insanely effective, this was the most insane GIF I could find. Nicolas Cage always works well in a presentation. The definition of insanity, everyone's heard this, is doing something over and over again and expecting a different result. Now, the rabbit hole that I went down trying to figure this out, no one knows who really said this. So these are the three people who they think might have said it: Albert Einstein, Mark Twain, or Ben Franklin. So if you ever want something to search for online, you could try to figure that out. I spent about 2 hours. Now, everyone loves networking at these events, and by loves, I mean actually hates. So for 10 seconds, say hi to 4 new people. If you can just look around very quickly, just look at 4 new people. Thank you. Thank you. That actually worked a lot better than I thought. I guess there is a reason for that. Thank you. Now I'll open it up for questions. All right, so you met 4 new people, right? The good news is 4 of you are terrible at your job. So that's called team building, right? Like, you met 4 new people. 80% of CEOs were not impressed by the work done by marketers and believed marketers were poor business performers. 80%, which, if you still remember fractions, is 4 out of 5. That's why I said 4 people. So it's either you or one of the people you met that's doing a good job, statistically speaking. This is a study from the 4 Nays group. Now, if we embrace that, I mean, yes, that's an epic failure. Andy Bernard would agree on that. 80% is terrible no matter who you are. But let's dig into the reasons why 80% of CEOs think we're terrible at our jobs. The first, marketers could not prove ROI of activities. We just hit on that with CMOs. It's kind of sad, 65% of the CMOs can't track marketing. What do you think that is for their actual workers, for everyone reporting to the CMO? If they're not taking that upstream, it's probably worse as we go down. The second reason, again, you were the chosen one there. So yeah, you were probably hired to do that. If you look at any job description, marketing is supposed to tie things to revenue. Secondly, marketers had lost sight of what their job really was. This is an issue of focus. This was the best GIF I could find for that. This guy just answered what on Jeopardy. If you guys weren't paying attention, what? He completely blanked on writing things. And that's what we look like if we're not focused on our job. And we fall victim to this all the time. I mean, how many of you just today were working on something for your job, and then you spent 2 hours on Facebook? And then you end up in a political argument, and then you have family members that don't talk to you. Because that's just how Facebook works right now, or at least it does for me. Third, marketers were not business performance obsessed enough. Don't take that back home. I forgot I had family here. Someone is blocked in our family. It's not you. Marketers were not business performance obsessed enough. Now, this is keeping your eye on the ball. This is the best gift I could find for this. So these people are probably on Instagram or doing some Snapchat, like Snapchat fam, whatever you guys say on Snapchat. I'm not on Snapchat. And then the ball hits her right in the face. So that's what we look like as marketers to CEOs. If I can give you any visual, when you walk into work every day, no matter how you're dressed, when your CEO sees you in the elevator, that, boom, right in the face. So go do some more tweets, get likes, follows, all those important things, right? But good news, 70% of CEOs admitted that they may be responsible for poor marketing performance. So when I was digging into this study, that was the sigh of relief moment. Maybe it's not so bad. And the reasons that they blame themselves, first, having steadily lost trust in the ability of marketing to be successful. Yeah, that's not really taking any accountability. If you're in a relationship and you say, hey, I could be at blame because I didn't put enough trust in you, or you could say, I lost trust that you were going to be successful. So, yeah, I blame myself because I don't think that you're going to be a good partner. That usually works out well. Try that at home. Secondly, having given up on holding marketers accountable. Again, this is not accepting any blame at all. So the reasons they blame themselves, in summary, they think we suck because our terrible performance is because they should have fired us a long time ago. Basically, that's what it means, right? This is a real study. This is not made up. This is not BuzzFeed. This is a group that makes their living studying this stuff. So as we're all here, 80% CEOs don't think we're doing a great job. This is not good for marketers. Hooray, uplifting talk. I don't think you review sessions here, so I can just keep going down this path and be like, just turn it into a rant. Just keep mumbling into the microphone while you're eating pizza. Now, you may be thinking, how can we get back on the right track, Chris? Because that's what I would think if I was doing a great job of marketers, and a lot of you don't laugh at that joke. That's also very sad that you don't know Matt Foley. The only barrier to information today is laziness. There is not a single thing in the world, for the most part, that is not on Google. If you buy a product and it turns out to be terrible, it's your fault. This is picking up like any slight breath. Thank you for confirming my suspicion there. Really, how many times have you bought a product that you hated? Okay, I already said this is your fault, so now no one's raising their hand. They're like, no, I only buy great things, Chris. How many people have left a negative review online? All right, lots of people. How many people have left a positive review online? Even more people. That tells me you guys are not telling the truth for the most part. The best way to get more resources, time, or budget is to get results first. This is not a chicken nor the egg. And I've fallen victim to this as a marketer. I've gone to a boss before and said, hey, I can be much more successful if you give me more budget. And it doesn't work that way. The way we get more budget is to be more successful, which may not be the best thing to hear, but we have to get the results first. Then maybe we can get additional hires. Then maybe we can bring in that agency we want to work with. Then maybe we can engage in that content project. How many people have ever caught a mouse? All right, we have mice in our garage. We just sold our house, so luckily we don't have to worry about it because we're moving. But if you've ever had a mouse and you've tried to catch them, what's the method you use? What do you do to catch a mouse? Borrow a cat. Mouse trap, yeah. Bigger mouse, I like that, yeah. So, I mean, there's the mousetrap model, which you put cheese in there and it snaps on the cheese, or you could do what they do in the studies, where you have cheese at the end of a maze, and the mouse goes one way and runs into a wall, and then another way, and eventually the mouse finds the cheese. Everyone in this room would do the cat model, which I don't know where you borrow a cat. Is there Uber for cats? If not, a business opportunity. You don't go and find a maze and put cheese at the end. You get a mousetrap. You want that direct feedback. You want the mouse to come in, like, oh, there's cheese, and then bam, dead mouse. Now, you may not want to handle the dead mouse, but that's what you want to do. Now, as marketers, this is not what we do. We don't look at our business objectives and say, how can I drive more revenue today? How can I bring in more marketing qualified leads? How can I bring in more sales qualified leads? We're like tweet, like, follow, Snapchat fam, all this useless activity that we do every single day. This is us as marketers. We're in that maze. If everything we do is not tied to driving revenue, we're falling victim to that 80% number. It's another uplifting moment. Thank you for all the stares of concern. It's always great as a speaker when everybody's looking at you like, this is terrible. Personal branding. How many fans of personal branding? Oh, you guys didn't read the slide first. Personal branding is just a BS marketing term for being yourself and doing great work. So anything you read about personal branding, here's personal branding summed up. Be yourself, do your job. Again, I'm making lots of friends here. Sorry? You have to ask it before you put the slide up. Oh, no, I did it on purpose. I just wanted to see how many people are going to be like, yeah, personal branding is great. And there were lots. I know you're on the front row. You didn't see. Summarizing all of this, we have to stop chasing the next big thing and do our jobs better. I have to remind myself of this daily. Daily. And it's not that I'm a terrible marketer. I think I'm a decent marketer. But if we don't remind ourselves to focus on what matters, we fall victim into activities-based marketing. And when we're just busy with activities, we're not driving revenue. And when we're not driving revenue, we're not bringing in value for the business. So how do we actually change this? We're going to jump in. These are all things you can start tomorrow. So we're going to dive in. Hopefully you have a pen and pencil, something to write on. Some of you do digital notes, whatever you want to do. First, Sun Tzu. How many people have read The Art of War? Good, lots of people. He says this very succinctly. Strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. But only 37% of marketers have a documented content strategy. Again, great gift for this. James Franco, this is a really weird one. Terrible public speaker, never booked James Franco. One of the companies I worked for booked him, it was a train wreck. 3,000 people, I think we ended up with 20 at the end. So live streaming, thank you. James Franco, everybody. But 37%. Why? Why are we out doing all this stuff without a documented strategy? Only 30% of content marketing is effective, which, oh gee golly, it's close to the number of people who document their content strategy. 37% actually document it, 30% is effective. So if we dive into this, you probably don't want to be a loser. Let's look at what that actually means. The people who have a documented content strategy are 300% more effective. That's the first thing we're going to do today. We're going to have a documented content strategy. Again, this is not rocket science. Thank you for one yes. All right, if you have something to write with, if you take notes digitally, this is the time we're going to do this very quickly. First step, define your mission. So what is your one thing? Here's some quick examples. If you think of Apple, I used to quiz this, everyone knows it, innovation, or at least it used to be. You could argue that now, they're still doing well in the stock market. Volvo is safety, everybody always gets that. So wherever you work, or whatever you want to do, what is the one thing? What's the one thing you want to stand for? What's the mission? Why do you get up every day and go to work? Secondly, what is your main goal? This is one goal. As marketers, we have to distill it down to one single goal. And here's an example. This is one that's been the same case for me for about 8 years now. Our main goal is to generate more leads that become sales qualified. So even if we don't track to SQL, so if you're a marketer and you have the waterfall approach, we have people who come to our site as visitors, we have people who click to the landing page, people who complete the landing page, people that become marketing qualified leads, people that become sales qualified leads, then opportunities, then revenue. We want to track all the way through, but you need to pay attention to what business you're driving. So what is your one goal? Third, document a plan to achieve that goal. So if you have a mission, you have one goal, what can you do to help achieve that goal? An example for sales qualified leads, you can look at the top 5 sales qualified lead assets and replicate those. So what content is working? How can we refresh that? How can we do more of that? You can run an influencer webinar each quarter. We know webinars usually get big spikes of traffic. Find someone to partner with, do a webinar, try to capitalize on that wave. Sponsor and conduct original research. There's no better way to become a thought leader than conducting original research. It may be more expensive, but find a partner, do some research. Identify and engage thought leaders. Find people in your tribe, in the circle that you're in, connect with them. Get to know them. Then maybe they'll share your content. You can at least pick their brains, try to do something useful with it. And then turn your content into cross-channel campaigns. So take a big piece of content, turn it into lots of other pieces of content, and build out a comprehensive campaign. Step 4, identify the best metrics for your company and team. There is not a single set of marketing metrics that everyone should use. You have to align the metrics to what matters for your business. Maybe you are a Snapchat business and it matters to have some of the things that Snapchat tracks. There are plenty of people making lots of money in Snapchat. I'm just not a Snapchat user. That's not a bad thing. Some examples. Again, the waterfall, that one's really important. For me, marketing qualified lead to sales qualified lead to opportunity to money, traffic and the variations. So how are things changing? Why are things changing? Share of voice and awareness metrics, top converting assets, engagement, volume, or production. Some businesses do care about how much you're putting out. It may be more about quantity than quality. Figure out what is important for your business and start to track only those things. And it's probably not views. That's a secondary conversation. I know tons of people that go to a CEO and say, hey, our new blog post got 10,000 views. Is that bringing business? Maybe. Maybe it's bringing business, maybe it's not. What really matters for your business? Step 5, establish a baseline and measure against it. This is really simple. If you don't have any historical data, you have a flat line. So start tomorrow and figure out what's changing. So if there's a spike in traffic, why was there a spike in traffic? What happened at the peak here? Why did it drop? What was the delta between those 2 points? What was the time frame that happened? Then when it drops, why does it spike back up? The insights are what's important. And there's no marketing tool that's going to spit out all the insights. You have to spend the time there. You can track it all in Google Analytics. You can get these charts. But charts don't communicate to the C-suite. We have to look at that and understand what happened and why. And that is what we communicate. Recap. So for documenting your content strategy, define your mission, identify one singular goal, document a plan to accomplish it, decide on relevant metrics, and then establish a baseline and start testing. If you do all of those things, you're in that 37% of folks with a documented content strategy. You can start with a one-page document, and that's fine. But that can be some guidance to get you started. This is every CEO when they think about marketing. You know, I'm in a multi-billion-dollar company, and our goal is to grow by billions of dollars in the segment I'm in. So we're trying to close $10, $100 million deals, some billion-dollar deals. I'm not going to blog post or tweet my way to a $10 million deal. So for me, I have to think about what are the results that will make Jeff Immelt look like that. Really, I mean, that's an easy way to think about it. What can I do to make the CEO excited? And it's probably not tweeting all day. Now, before we dive into this, I put as many disclaimers as I could find. Just take your local infomercial, whichever one you like. Results not typical, results may vary. Every business is different. B2B is different than B2C. There are all kinds of other acronyms, H to H, human to human. You know, Ted Rubin has return on relationship. There's all kinds of things you can summarize here, but your business is your business. Figure out what works for your business. The first thing you can do, answer every single question your audience has. We used to have a page on websites called FAQ, frequently asked questions. Then someone decided that was not cool. Let's move everything to a blog. And then we go and we blog, and sometimes it's valuable, sometimes it's not. But people have questions. If you're not answering the questions, someone else will. Marcus Sheridan has a book called They Ask You Answer. It came out this year, it just won Best Business Book by Mashable. He has a quote where he says, the best teacher wins. If you don't know the story of Marcus Sheridan, you could spend some time researching it. He was running a swimming pool company during the recession. If you were alive during the recession, Just making sure you're with me. Swimming pools was not high on the list of things you wanted to buy if you didn't know if you could afford your house the next day. But Marcus looked at it as an opportunity and said, what can I do right now? There's a lull. What can I do? He went to every install. He went to every manufacturer, every pool that they built. He walked around and he wrote down every single thing that he could answer. What's a question I could answer? What have people asked me over the last 10 years? He wrote every single thing down, answered every single question he could think of. Now it's the #1 swimming pool website in the world. Marcus consults with marketing companies. He runs several companies. And he has a video series about his life with his family and finding work-life balance. And he figured it out. That's what you want to do. Answer every question and be the best teacher. The second thing you can do, your subject matter experts are people you should be talking to. How many folks work with really smart people that know something you don't know, by show of hands? Okay, everybody. Are you talking to those people? Some of you are. But there are other places in your building where you will not venture. Maybe it's the developers with their own popcorn machine, the hidden bathroom in the corner. I've worked at a place where that was the case. If you don't build that relationship, you're not getting that feedback loop. You don't know how to summarize what they're experiencing. So what you want to do is be the dumbest person in the room. This is one of my favorite movies, Dumb and Dumber. But the dumbest person in the room is not dumb by the traditional sense. It's someone who is actually dumb enough to not propose a solution. Listen. Talk to people. Figure out what's going on with them instead of saying, well, actually, you have that problem, and here's how we solve that problem. Really get to it. They may not even be describing the problem. It may be 3 layers deep. I know my brother worked at a company where he would have to drive out to troubleshoot things, and sometimes it was because they didn't have the receiver turned on in their place of business. So yeah, there's no audio because you didn't hit the power button or it's not plugged in. And we all laugh when we call tech support and they're like, well, can you please reboot your router and make sure it's plugged in properly? Yeah, that's a problem. They discovered that was the #1 thing. If you don't listen to people and understand the voice of the customer, you just don't know. I worked in a medical device company, and our #1 problem was with the basket on a mobile stand for the high-tech piece of machinery we sold. So we were selling this expensive piece of equipment that went onto a mobile stand. The basket on the stand would break. The policy before we discovered this problem was, oh, your basket broke? We'll send you 5 more baskets because we make them really cheap in China. And that's what they did. And what's that customer experience? It's like, oh, your basket broke. Here's 5 more in the mail. When they break, just put on another one. It's like, yeah, we're awesome at customer support. They never email us back. Yeah, because they'll never buy again. We swapped that out with a mobile stand. We made no money on the mobile stand, but we sold the equipment. And then we closed a $5 billion distribution deal the next week. If we didn't talk to customer support, we had no idea that that was the #1 problem. It was the basket on the mobile stand for the piece of equipment. It was not the equipment we produced. It was something we sourced that was very cheaply made. This is an example from Compendium. If you can't read all of this, these are questions that were written down on a whiteboard, and we each signed up to answer those questions. So it was a content marketing software play, but how do I measure content marketing? What are the benefits of mobile content? How do I make the case for content? How do I best solicit customer stories? Each person in the company signed up to do that. We paid a video crew for 2 hours of time. They came into our office, they set up in one spot, and we took turns and we went and answered the questions. So we would walk up, we would say, how do I find the right content mix? Blah, 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 blah. Answer that question, go back to your desk. Everyone cycled through and answered questions. We ended up with about 25 videos that we put on YouTube and Vimeo. So there's search traffic there. We embedded them in blog posts where we answered those questions in blog form. And then in our email campaigns, we could plug any of these in. If a customer support issue came up, if they asked one of these questions, how do you best reuse old content? Boom. Here's our CEO, Chris Baggett, talking about that. Third, stop trying to hit home runs with everything that you do. We are so conditioned to HubSpot and BuzzFeed and Mashable and LinkedIn and these content juggernauts where they have huge teams creating amazing content every single hour. That's probably not the case for your business. But if you're trying to create the next best thing to get millions and millions of views, there's probably many things you're neglecting to do in your business. Again, this is another rabbit hole. I was trying to think through this concept of home run content, so I did a bunch of research. And since 1901, in Major League Baseball, only 45 players have had a season, and that's out of 125,000 plus, with more home runs than strikeouts. And that's a minimum of 20 home runs. Quite literally, the best baseball players in the world, it's almost statistically impossible for them to hit more home runs than strikeouts. So if you're swinging for the fence every single time with everything you do in marketing, you're going to miss a bunch. And you might hit a home run, but if you miss 10 before that, do you have a job? I don't know. Maybe you don't. So my approach, I think you have to get singles, doubles, and triples. You have to have smaller pieces of content that require less budget, less time. Get them out there, let them be successful, and then build them into something larger. Or you can work backwards. You can take a swing for the fence, build something big, but turn it into smaller pieces. So even if the big thing's not a hit, you have lots of other things that can be. This is another stat I discovered. This is a blog post for Jay Baer on Convince and Convert, but I'm 341 times more likely to win the Powerball lottery than find your piece of content online. That's how the stats work out. How many people have won the Powerball lottery? Phil. Everybody was looking like, who's my new best friend? Yeah, right. That's crazy. The days of us being thought leaders and starting a blog and everyone lining up at our door to read our content, that's long gone. That ship has sailed. It has to be relevant content to the right people. So it's much more on the quality relevance play than, hey, we're going to hire a bunch of people and create a whole bunch of stuff and hope that something works. Kapos did an ebook a few years back, the distribution of a Kapos ebook. So this was a real example of how Kapos made 122 content assets from one ebook. If you Google distribution of a Kapos ebook, this will come up. So they made a content marketing hiring handbook, turned it into all this other stuff. They sliced it into smaller content, they promoted all the smaller content, they turned those into blog posts. So that one content initiative, the one thing earmarked for budget, created 122 things. That's the mentality we need as marketers. Fourth, realize that content is everywhere. This is one of the number one questions, like, how do I create more content? You know, what do I talk about? Yeah, it's every single place. How many people have seen American Beauty? All right, good, lots of people. This is one of my favorite quotes. Lester said, sometimes I feel like I'm seeing it all at once, and it's too much. My heart fills up like a balloon that's about to burst, and then I remember to relax and stop trying to hold on to it, and then it flows through me like rain. Now, I love conspiracy theories and movies and going down to IMDb and reading all of that stuff. So my theory is that it is content. That's right. American Beauty was about content marketing. So if you plug in content, sometimes I feel like I'm seeing content all at once, and content's too much. My heart fills up like a balloon that's about to burst, and then I remember to relax and stop trying to hold on to content, and then content flows through me like rain. Thank you for the 2 people that thought that was funny. Content is all around us. It's on the phone. It's in your meetings. It's in every email you send. That's the approach we have to get to. So with emails, how many people have sent an email and then you can never find it again? So you answered a question, then you never find it again. A couple honest people in the room, thank you. I do this all the time. I'll spend an hour writing an email, and then maybe I'm not using Google hosted services at the company I work for, and then I can't find it. An example of how this played out for a customer we had at Compendium, this is a major seller of tires online. They would email the customer, so this one said, what are the best tires for my Honda Odyssey? A person emailed, they came through and they answered, they were like, here are the 3 we recommend, the Goodyear Assurance, Continental Cross Contact, blah, 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 blah. They talk about what they would pick and why. But the trick, they BCC'd an email address that routed that into their marketing system. So the rep was sending an email, they did this for years and years and years. It went to a marketing manager and turned into this. What are the best tires for my Honda Odyssey? All those text links turned into actual links. And the trick, every single blue link is trackable. The rep that answered that email gets paid if someone clicks through to buy that. So that email that was sent to die in an inbox is turning into content that can be repurposed on the blog. It can be plugged into marketing campaigns. They can use it over and over and over. That's one quick example of how content's everywhere you already are. Content is dying on the phone. Most of us, when the phone rings, we feel like Milton. We hide. When our phone rings, we're like, no. I hit ignore all the time. I miss important calls daily because I'm wondering why didn't they email or text me or LinkedIn or Twitter? I don't want to talk on the phone. But when you talk on the phone, there's this crazy thing you can do called opening a notebook and writing stuff down. Because my day is consumed with meetings. Meetings, some of these are on the phone, some are in person. This was an actual week for me at GE, very exciting. But we can turn that into content. So what I would encourage you to do is be opportunistic in the pursuit of creating content that your customers and prospects find valuable. The key piece, valuable. Don't create things just to create things. If you have someone pushing that metric on you to say, oh, we need a blog post on this cadence, I would argue cadence is much less important than it used to be because there's so much content. Find something that you really need to address strategically that can help close deals. Talk to sales, talk to customer support. Figure out this is a problem we have. Research that problem, address that problem, and see what happens when you publish that. And then let everyone know. Market your marketing. Half the people you work with don't know what the heck you do every day. My family still doesn't know. My mom asks me all the time. My wife doesn't know what I do as a marketer. And we've been married 7 years. There's another guy that knows that problem. But this is important. I mean, we do all this stuff and we don't tell anyone about it. We might share it on Twitter and Facebook, but odds are our coworkers aren't our friends on Twitter and Facebook because we don't want them to know we spend our whole day there. So send the email out that says, hey, we created something of value. We'd love for you guys to use it. Let us know what you think. That single thing alone can mean it can pay dividends for your business. Tony Robbins, you guys have probably seen the Netflix documentary. This was one of the gems from one of his TED Talks that I really liked. The defining factor is never resources, it is resourcefulness. As marketers, we can argue about resources all day. You walk around and ask someone, hey, do you have enough budget at a marketing conference? And they're going to be your best friend. They're going to tell you about everything that's wrong, all the people that they hate. Here are the people that are in the way of them getting budget. And then this person got promoted and that person got fired. It turns into this whole thing because we all live in that world. But I think there's something to be said about this. It's not about how much budget you have. Some of the most successful things I've ever been fortunate to work on were not the biggest budget spends. It was the best application and the best understanding of the customer need. So to wrap all of that up, things that you can do right now: answer every question, interview your colleagues, stop trying to hit home runs, and find content everywhere. These are things you can do tomorrow. You don't need millions of dollars to do this. You can do it for free. Giving you time to get that picture, Neil. I see you back there. All right. All right, wrapping it up completely. Stop chasing the next big thing. If anyone asks you what the next big thing is, I give you permission to punch them in the face. But I'm not legally responsible for anything that happens when you punch them. But don't go around chasing shiny objects. Focus on what's important. Document the content strategy. Spend some time with your team and coworkers and figure that out. Document what you actually need to do and create content against. Find content everywhere. Don't stare at a blinking cursor in Microsoft Word or Google Docs. Think about everything you're already doing that is a content opportunity. Have the journalistic approach and try to turn it into content. Achieve your measurable goals. Again, if you have goals, you can work against them and try to achieve them. It's not flying blindly and just hoping that things work out. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm at CM Moody on Twitter until Twitter decides they no longer exist. On LinkedIn, Chris Moody is the URL there. But the big thing I'd like to leave you with, as marketers, I don't mean for this to be doom and gloom, but we have to be aware of how we're perceived. If the C-suite disapproves of 80% of marketing teams, we can change that. And that's a big part of why Chris is doing this with Triangle Marketing Club and other marketing organizations exist to try to solve this problem. I would argue that the single thing to solve this problem is aligning to revenue. If we can have the conversation as marketers, to say, we are driving more business. Here's what you pay us. Here's our budget. We brought in more than that. That turns you from a cost center into someone that's driving revenue. So that's a sales approach that we can embrace as marketers. And if we do that, it puts us in much better standing. And then you'll have an actual seat at the C table. It's been a long day. 2-year-old is sick, so very ideal situation at home with 3 kids under the age of 5. So I can keep talking for like an hour. If you want me to hang out here, it's okay. I drove my own car, so I can just stay here all night. There's probably a bed. See someone that works here. He said there's a bed. But again, I'll stick around today. I really want to stress the fact that as marketers, I do believe we have to bond together, because when we see data like that, it's true. It's true. And we've all been victim of that. We've all been guilty of that. We've been in the organizations where we're not driving the value, and we know we're not driving the value. And it may be because you want to work somewhere else. It may be because you hate your boss. There's tons of scenarios that could explain that. But find that single thing where you can impact revenue. And then see what happens. If you impact revenue, it could create a better situation in your current job, or it could open doors to new opportunities. So thank you all for your time. Please connect with me. Here's all the ways you can reach out, and I'll stick around for questions, whether it's through the mic or hanging out. You guys just let me know.